I'm Christina, a recovering people pleaser turned assertiveness expert. I was tired of taking the back seat to what other people wanted, and I finally cracked the code to go from hesitant and timid to self-assured and confident. I became a women's empowerment coach so that I could help other women like me find their words, feel heard, and step into their power. If you struggle to speak up in tricky situations and you're looking to change the way your conversations go, you're in the right place. I was not someone who thought I had a problem with feeling like I was worthy enough for something, but it actually ended up being an underlying issue around most times that I didn't speak up. And as I was learning about speaking up for myself in general and being mindful of what I said, I started to see myself and others around me saying certain things, even very subtle things, that they seem to undercut and undersell our worth as a person. So I want to talk about a few of those that I think of. Somebody saying things like, I just don't want to feel like I'm a burden. And the thought going with that is, everything's moving along fine. I don't want to rock the boat. And it makes me think of women when we're like, yeah, everything is fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But yet we're not fine. So that's one that I see probably most common. Another one, this isn't something that I hear people say, but I just see them doing where different cultures I've seen do this, where the mom or the women in the family, they always take care of everyone else first. They take care of the kids, the spouse, the visitors. I'm thinking about holidays and gatherings that I've been to where there's the few women who are in charge of the food. If they sit down to eat, they're the last person to sit down to eat. And in one way, I can see those people, because I know I can be this way, saying things like, well, it makes me feel good when other people are taken care of. It's true in one way, and in another way, we're putting on somebody else's oxygen mask before we even think about putting on our own. And then the third one that I'm thinking about, and I see this in a lot of different ways, but ultimately it looks like this. They don't listen to me anyway. Why even say something to my kids? They don't even listen to me anyway. I'm not going to bring that up to my spouse because they're not going to do anything anyway. I might as well not say anything. I'm also thinking about cases where we might interject little phrases, we might preface something, or we might qualify something before we bring up what it is we want to bring up. So this past week, I had a conversation with a friend, and I saw an example of this, and I wanted to share it with you. We were having a good conversation back and forth, and then what she said was, this might sound silly, but when you're talking about this, are you referring to that? And basically, she was just wanting to clarify, okay, I just want to make sure that I understood you correctly. But what I want to zoom in on is the first 4 words. Before she said her piece, she had to add in, she felt like she had to add in, this might sound silly. And it just makes me wonder, why do we feel the need to qualify what we're about to say? Whether it sounds silly or not, it's a question that we feel like we want to ask. Or another one I was thinking of, Mel Robbins has an audiobook called Take Control of Your Life, How to Silence Fear and Win the Mental Game. And I love what she did. It's not a print book. It's only available in audio because she wants you to be able to hear the different coaching conversations that she has. And in one of these conversations, the person that she was coaching, they said something very similar to what my friend said. They said so, I can't remember the exact words. And because it's not a print book, I can't go and check, what page was this on or what chapter was this on. But if my memory serves me correctly, they said something along the lines of, you're going to think this is weird, but... And I love it. Mel stopped the person and she asked them, why did they have to preface or minimize what they were going to say? It doesn't matter if it's weird. It doesn't matter, you don't know how the other person is going to take it. That's a whole other topic, taking ownership over how somebody else reacts. But all of these things. Why do we feel the need to preface something that, we value enough that we want to say it out loud? My thought is, we're deciding like, oh, you're going to think this, predetermining. And we're also deciding ahead of time, this might not even be worth mentioning. Like, at what point and who decides if it's worth mentioning? And at what point is it you don't feel like it's worth bringing up because you don't want to rock the boat or you don't want to seem different or whatever? And this circles back to this idea of feeling worthy. No matter what, if you have a question, if you have something you want to say and you feel like you want to ask it, then I think it's worth asking. And now circling back to kind of how I started this episode, I brushed off the idea that, that I had feelings of unworthiness because I never identified with that word. Of course, I used to think, of course I'm worthy. I'm Christina. I've worked so hard. I deserve to succeed just like everybody else. Like, I think in the last couple of conversations around this that I've had, most women would agree, like, well, of course I'm worthy. Of course, I'm a person. My life matters. But yet at the same time, we are minimizing things and saying this might sound silly or, I hate to bring this up, but why? Why do we do that? And when we do these things, and we're saying these qualifying statements, these statements are making a decision for us before we've even started. And that decision, it tends to lean on the idea that we have less worth than someone else. So let's take a look at those 3 statements that I mentioned before. The first one being, I don't want to feel like a burden. And I just want to zoom in on that a little bit. Why? Aren't your emotions and needs and wants just as important as the other person's? For me, my own personal example with this is, I'll try to keep this story short, but basically, I was going to an event with a group of women. I knew that I wanted to run on time. And I knew that this one lady, she tends to run late. And sure enough, that's what happened. She was running late. And the third lady we were with, she was like, well, don't say anything. It'll upset her. And this was years ago. And I remember thinking like, I'm already upset. Why is it more important that I don't upset the other person? But that seems like it's a culture that how to phrase it. It's a viewpoint that a lot of cultures seem to impress upon their women. I don't want to feel like a burden. I don't want to upset somebody else. I don't want to be the reason why this didn't work. I just want to draw attention to that. The other one I want to look at is this idea of women are like, I just want to make sure that everyone else is taken care of first, or that everybody else is included. I don't want anybody to feel left out. Oh my goodness, that's one that I struggle with, or that I see myself doing a lot, is, well, I just want to make sure everyone's included. Is it up to me to make sure that other people are included? If that person wants to be included, isn't it up to them? Okay, so we have to split the hairs here a little bit. Is it up to me to make sure that person got an invitation? Okay, yes, because if they weren't invited, they don't know that it's an opening for them. But beyond that, that's not on me. And it can border on us putting on the other person's oxygen mask first before we even put our own on. Like, I do this sometimes where I think about, okay, does everybody know what the plan is? And then I haven't made a decision about what my part of the plan is. They're no more important than I am. I need to figure out my part before I can help other people. And I think that kind of very subtly relates to this idea of me being worth less than somebody else. So another one that I want to look at is, they don't listen to me anyway. And we don't have control over what somebody takes in, but if we don't say anything, then we're denying ourselves. This is one thing that I learned in my direct sales business was, if you don't ask, the answer is already no. If people don't even know what you need, you can't get mad when people don't give you what you need. And or, just being mad about, well, I'm not going to say anything because they don't even listen to me. Really look back and evaluate, how have you said what you needed to say, or have you not said what you needed to say? And just that negotiating of, well, why even say something? Why? Because you're worth it. That's why. So I want to give you a little bit of a personal example when I really started understanding the idea that I don't have to justify why I'm doing something, or I don't have to expect someone to agree with me, or putting someone else's needs above mine. What if just the simple fact that I feel this need, or I feel something, what if that's all I need for it to be worthy, and for me to be worthy to say something? So I used to date this guy, we'll call him David. And at one point I realized, I think it was after we broke up, I realized he had a tendency to ask why I felt a certain way. And I remember I would feel pressured to justify my feelings. And, there was one thing where it was like, at some point I realized, like, I had a threshold for how long I could hang out with him. And then I would be like, okay, so now I'm going to go home. And he would be like, well, why? Why do you feel that way? Or why do you want to do that kind of thing? And I started realizing that I didn't need to justify anything. I felt a certain way. I didn't want a certain thing. And that was enough. My feeling by itself is worth it. And another thing I had to realize that the other person may not understand my feelings or agree with my feelings, but these were my feelings. And they were valid enough, no matter what, whether they agreed or didn't. And I remember, now I look back on it and I can analyze the situation. I had like a threshold with how long I could hang out with David. And very repeatedly, I noticed that it was about 4 hours. And after about 4 hours, I just kind of felt wiped out. And so I would say like, okay, well, let's hang out later. I'll go home, you go home kind of thing. And he would ask why. At the time, he kind of stopped me. He caught me off guard. I couldn't articulate the reason. I just knew that I was wiped out. I knew there was a need. I was feeling drained. And now in hindsight, I'm like, I shouldn't have to explain. I need to go home. I wonder where that comes from, that we feel like we need to justify. Okay, well, I need to go let the dog out. Leaving that's a common example for me. Leaving a party early, and it's like, well, I have to let the dog out. Yeah, it's probably true that I do. But why can't we say, okay, I need to get going, or, and even just leaving it at that. Why does it have to be, I need to get going because of such and such? I need to get going, whether it's for my mental health, or whether it's to let my dog out, or whether it's to submit a paper before the deadline. The reason doesn't matter. I'm asking for what I need. So in this way, it's more than just about, do you feel worthy? Well, of course I feel worthy. But are there little tiny ways that we're even undermining ourselves and saying like, well, you're only worthy if you have a good excuse. Or this might seem silly, but it doesn't matter if it's silly. If you want to say it, say it. How about that? All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. If you're looking for a way to gain more confidence when you're confronted with tricky situations, download my free guide, 3 Simple Steps to Speak Up for Yourself, even when you just want to run and hide. Check out the link in the show notes to get your copy. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the Empowering Women's Words podcast. Talk to you soon.